Hello and welcome back. And today I have a very big announcement for you guys. If you've been around this channel for a while, you know that I do host the Climathon, which is a read-a-thon all about nature and the environment and also the climate crisis, but the focus is really on nature and the environment. In the past, I've always hosted this in the fall months, like October, November, something like that. And one time I also made a mini round in the month of January. And if you're new here on this channel, hi, my name is Tasmin. I've moved from Germany to the Azores and I document on this channel my life on the islands and also a lot about books because I'm an avid reader and I'm also an author. If you are interested in my work as an author, the books I've published are The Anatomy of Waves, Welcome Home Dear Soul, and The Eloquence of Hurricanes. So basically in 2023, I just did not have the capacity to host a read-a-thon. Again, if you've been around, you know that we've been renovating an almost 200-year-old house. And this summer we finally moved in, but then a lot of health stuff happened and burnout happened and like a lot was going on this year. So I didn't have the capacity to host a read-a-thon specifically about the climate. I only at the very tail end of the year did I have the capacity to even pick up a book about the climate or nature because I was just so burnt out. I also wasn't 100% happy with how the Climathon was in the past because nature, the environment, and the climate, they have so many topics and so many interesting books, like both in non-fiction and fiction, that you can read and that you can pick up, and so many important little nuances and things that I wanted to include. And to push that all into 1 month always felt like very forced and came with a lot of stress, and it always felt like it was just too much for a single month, especially if you're someone who's not like a super fast-paced reader who reads like 10 books in a month. It felt like it was a bit too much, even though of course all the prompts were always optional. But like even for me who does read a lot, when I was trying to follow the prompts, it just felt like too much. So this time around, I have decided that the Climathon is no longer a month-long read-a-thon, but it is now in 2024 a year-long event. I am so excited about this. I have made 12 reading prompts and, as in the past, also 3 extra bonus challenges that have nothing to do with reading. Before I dive into what these prompts are, first up, of course, a few disclaimers. The first one is that these prompts are 100% optional. Everything that the Climathon is trying to do is to get you to read more about nature, your environment, the climate crisis, and it doesn't need to be non-fiction. Every genre, graphic novel, fiction, children's books, everything counts. Everything counts, and the prompts that I'm going to introduce to you in a second are completely optional. They are a guide to help you pick and choose, and if you like to work with bingo boards and prompts, it is for you. But if you don't like to work with that and you just want to see the Climathon as a little bit of a challenge to push you to read a bit more into that direction, that is totally fine. If you do work with the prompts, there is also no order. Like there is not like, oh, you need to read this in January, this in February. Like you can do that for yourself if you want to. I think I might be doing that, but I'm not quite sure yet. But yeah, you can do that because it's going to be 12 prompts for 12 months, but you don't need to pick one prompt for each month or even read climate books every single month. I just made 12 prompts for 12 months because it's a year-long read-a-thon. But you can, if you preferred the old format, be like, okay, I'm gonna try to do the Climathon just in 1 single month of the year and try to fulfill as many prompts as possible in 1 single month, if that is more up your alley. But again, the prompts are just a guideline. Aside from that, again, genre doesn't matter, length doesn't matter, format doesn't matter, audiobooks, graphic novels, doesn't matter. Whatever floats your boat works as long as it's a book and and that's basically the only true rule of this read-a-thon. Read-a-thon? Read-a-thon? The only true rule that we do have for the Climathon is that all books need to be heavily focused on nature, the environment, and so on and so forth. Like, for example, there's the prompt with read a book about animals. It is not enough to read a romance book that has a cat on the cover. Like, that is not enough. Like, the book should focus on the topic. And again, it doesn't need to be nonfiction, even though, of course, nonfiction has probably the biggest variety of books to choose from and the most niche books that you can choose and the most informative books, of course. But it's not a requirement, but it should have this emphasis on nature and the environment. I would also try to urge you to pick up books by BIPOC or Two-Spirit LGBTQIA+ authors, so queer authors, and just try to bring more diversity into your TBR, into the books that you're reading, because the climate crisis is a global issue. Nature does not know, boundaries, it doesn't know borders, it doesn't know the concepts of nations, and I think it's very important that within this whole context we see humanity as one big thing, and therefore it is so important to have different perspectives from different people with different life experiences and from different places of the world. This again is not a super big requirement, but it is something that I urge you to do if you are able to. And finally, I have a co-host, the same co-host I had last year, my dear friend Ania from Well Traveled Books. She is co-hosting, so please check her out if you want to watch more of this type of content. She's also a complete booktube channel, not like me, who just sometimes makes videos about books, so go check her out, she's amazing. Okay, now let's get into the prompts. As I said, there are 12 prompts you can choose from or that you can all do. Again, you can treat this as a bingo board where you just try to make a line, or you can read one book for each month of the year. You can do with this whatever you want. A lot of these prompts are very self-explanatory. Like the first one is to read a book about plants. This can be about trees, the forest, algae in the ocean, house plants, herbs, healing plants, whatever you want. A book about plants. The second prompt is to read a book with a focus on animals or fungi or the mycelium or that kind of stuff. I know they don't belong into the same category. I know fungi, mycelium are its own kind of thing on the circle of life, but I understand that fungi and mycelium is not a topic for everybody, so I wanted to combine it with something in order for people to have a choice if they really want to read about mushrooms and fungi, because they're incredibly fascinating, but I also understand that they're not for everybody. And animals usually are for everybody. And here again, it can be wildlife, it can be life in the ocean, on land, in the air, doesn't matter, animals. Self-explanatory. The next book is read a book about consumerism or capitalism. For this category, for example, you could pick up a book about the fast fashion industry, about economics, maybe about the change in the energy sector, anything and everything that has to do with our current economic system, which at least in the West, it is capitalism. And as we all know, capitalism is a huge problem in the climate crisis. So that's a topic to choose from. The next prompt is to read a book about the ocean, and obviously there's a lot you can choose from. However, I also invite you, if you're not really interested, to pick up a book specifically about the ocean, or maybe you just don't have access to one for whatever circumstances. Maybe you can also just pick up a book about water in general. There are some amazing books about water out there, about rivers, lakes, water systems, islands. I would also count for this because islands usually are within oceans. So you can really stretch this prompt to whatever book you want to read that has a very big focus on water, ecosystem, and or islands, but the main prompt is oceans. The next prompt is connection. Read a book about connection. And now you might ask yourself, what do you mean? This can mean whatever you want it to mean. This can mean you read a book about community, connection between humans coming together in a time of crisis, finding connection, finding your people, maybe something about like an activist movement, for example. This could work well. Or again, like just the topic of community and coming together, how we can help each other, how we can grow as humanity, how we can find peace. It can be about that, like about the connection between humans and nature, like refining that, or how it was in the past, how it might be in the future. But it could also be, you know, a connection between other parts of life, other parts of nature. Like humans are nature, obviously, but like, for example, if you were to read a book about the mycelium in the forest ecosystem, this is definitely something that is about connection, because the mycelium is connecting the trees to each other. Like, so you can interpret this prompt however you like, with whatever book you want to fill it with. The next prompt is again very self-explanatory. Read a book by an indigenous author. The only note I have here for you is that it does not need to be an indigenous author from North America. They can come from all places around the globe, because indigenous people exist and or have existed around the entire globe. So just make sure it's an indigenous author and you learn something new. The next prompt is to read a book about revolution and or change. This can again be about something that is happening with, you know, the whole activism movements, about revolution. This can also be about, for example, a queer revolution, or Black people and how their life has been revolutionized and how they stood up for their rights. While this might not have at first glance like a deep connection to the climate, it does in the bigger picture. So feel free to not be like, okay, this needs to be a revolution about nature. It can, for example, also be about veganism if you want, but it doesn't have to be. But it can also be just a book about change in general, like also looking into the future. What are changes that we still need to do? What are changes that we would like to do? What are changes I can do? Things like that. Play with this prompt as you like. I think you all understand the concepts of revolution and change. The next prompt is to read a book by an activist author, so an author that is an activist and identifies as an activist and is active as an activist. The next prompt is to read a book about food. This is a prompt we never had at Climathon before, but it was very important to me to include it because food is such a huge part of the conversation when it comes to nature, the climate crisis, and potential solutions for it. But I'm not forcing you to read about like veganism or anything like that. If that is what you want to read, of course, please feel free to pick it up. But this can also just be like a status quo of what's happening right now, how to grow food. This can be a book like about the strawberry, if you like strawberries and you want to read about strawberries. Like, it can also be like a very niche book. It can be even a cookbook if you want, or it can be a fiction book that heavily focuses on cooking, as long, again, as it has some kind of connection to the whole nature environment topic as a whole. Feel free to just pick up whatever floats your boat. The next prompt is maybe the most vague prompt on this list, and that is to read a book about Earth. What I really wanted to encapsulate into this prompt were topics that are very hard to summarize and that not everybody likes these types of topics. So I just wanted to throw them together so you can pick and choose what you are interested in. This can be things like geology, about volcanoes, about the weather, about farming, about soil. I think you get the idea. It's like natural science that is really connected with Earth as a system and as a planet. That is what I'm trying to say, and or just Earth in like the context of soil as the thing that is our home, as the thing that is feeding us, the thing that we're walking on, the thing that we are a part of yet separate of. That is kind of the idea of this prompt, but again, you can play around with this and stretch it to whatever your interests lie in. The next prompt is to read a book set on a different continent, preferably, of course, with an author from said continent. So if you're in North America, try to read a book that is set outside of that. If you are in Europe, try to read a book that is set outside of that. Even though here, of course, I would nudge you not to go for North America. Try to, if you are from the Western world, try to not read from the Western world for this prompt. This is, again, a prompt that is supposed to really enhance your perspective and broaden your horizon. So, but again, I'm not here to control you. You read what you want. I'm just saying that this is the intention of the prompt. And the very last prompt is to read a CLI-FI. CLI-FI stands for climate fiction. This is a genre that is getting bigger and bigger and bigger, and it does not need to be like science fiction in the sense that it needs to be set in the future. It just encapsulates fiction books that are heavily influenced and deal heavily with the topic of climate and nature and the whole climate crisis we are experiencing. So you can pick this up. However, I also put like a little note underneath that you can also just read a very positive sci-fi that's set in the future, because we tend to always think of the worst. Like a lot of sci-fi books, they do have like this idea of, okay, humanity has destroyed everything and now we are in space, or now we are on a different planet, or this and that. And I want to encourage you to, maybe if you're interested into this, to pick up books that look into positive possible futures. Like, what if we do manage to, get out of the climate crisis, or to change, or whatever. Like positive sci-fi stories, even if they're not like classified as cli-fi, also definitely count, because we do need positive outlooks. We need to look into different alternatives. We need to look into possible futures that are not the worst case scenario. Those were the 12 prompts. Now we have 3 extra prompts that are not about reading. You can do these whenever you want, for how long you want, and to which intensity you want. Again, there is no timeline. This read-a-thon and this whole challenge happened throughout the entire year of 2024. So you have an entire year to do this. And yeah, let's look into that. The first challenge is to post on social media about nature, the climate crisis, and this read-a-thon. So it's like 2 posts that this challenge requires, at least 2, preferably more, but at least 2. 1, to share this read-a-thon and to share about this whole challenge. Maybe you can share your TBR, maybe you can just share this slide or share my video with someone. That is an option. And just a post about nature. It can be your own opinion, it can be a repost from someone that you follow, and so on and so forth. Just post on social media about nature, about the climate crisis, something that's important to you within that context, and another post about this whole Climathon, read-a-thon. The second one is a classic by now for the Climathon, and that is to watch a nature documentary. And the third one, and the last one, is a new one, and that is to do something good for your local community. You choose whatever that is, because you are the only one who knows what your local community needs and what you have access to as a person and within your community. So you choose what that is and how that looks like and how much it is. Are you just gonna help with the next cleanup around where you live? Or are you gonna volunteer somewhere, or whatever it looks like for you? Just do something for your local community. It doesn't even have to be nature related. It can just be, I don't know, helping elderly people, like visiting elderly people that are in elderly homes, for example. This is just about your local community and helping where you are with what you can, with what is accessible to you and what you have available and what you have capacity for. This is it. This is the Climathon for 2024. I cannot believe it's 2024, but that is a different topic. I'm super excited that it's going to run all year. I hope that Ania and I will come up with a few fun things throughout the year, maybe some reading sprints, maybe some little things in between. If you have any ideas or wishes or feedback, please feel free to leave them in the comments down below. I'm so excited to read it. Also share your TBR with me, or if you have a YouTube channel or social media, just tag me in your TBRs. I really want to see them. I'm super excited. And yeah, let's get reading.